So this is, as you can clearly see, Site Building 2.0. We're going to talk about Layout Builder. My goals for this are to kind of give you an overview of what the module can do. I've got a couple of contrib modules that are installed or might be installed at some point during this demo. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But a lot of this stuff is really just to kind of give baselines for things. I have traditionally let people ask questions throughout, but since the first time I did this, we've added so much new stuff to it that the last time I did that, I totally ran out of time. So I'm going to ask you just to write down your question and then ask on the back end, and I will blaze through this as fast as I can to leave as much time for questions as possible. Yes?
Are you going to publish your slides?
No, because there are 4 of them and you won't care.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm Chris Vanderwater. If you don't know me, I am a senior software engineer at Acquia. I'm also one of the co-maintainers for CTools, also Panels, Panelizer, Page Manager, which is to say I've contributed a lot to D8 and an awful lot to page layout conceptually in Drupal over the course of many years. I'm also one of the co-authors of the plugin subsystem inside of Drupal core, and have been doing Drupal 8 development for the whole life cycle, and I've been doing Drupal for a little over 13 years now, so I've been around for a little bit. So as I said, I don't have many slides. Let's go demo. Okay, let's just make this big. So as you can see, I have a site that I have spent an awful lot of time theming and making awesome. And I put a couple of nodes in here. So really, the format of this is I'm just going to dig in and I'm going to start doing stuff. And I'll talk about what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'll point out things that are core, things that aren't core, and we can go from there. So the first and most obvious thing is that my theme is not core. And though it may look like I have spent no time on this theme, we'll get there. So really quickly, these are just articles. If I come in and I click on them, they are very standard. So let's go ahead and dig in here. So I'm going to go to content types because that's likely where I'm going to do stuff with articles. And we're going to come into manage display. Now, this should look pretty normal to everybody. This is what we're used to seeing when we do manage display for pretty much any bundle of a content entity. But I turned Layout Builder on, and I haven't configured anything about it. Literally in the back end, the only thing I've done is turn the module on. Now, Layout Builder is an experimental module inside of Drupal core. Okay, so if you've got 8.6 or even 8.5, although the features I'll be showing today are all 8.6 specific, you could turn this on and begin playing with some of it. Okay, and so in 8.6, we actually have the ability to turn Layout Builder on a per view mode basis. So by check marking this, I'm turning it on for my default view mode. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. And you'll see all my fields go away, and I now have a Manage Layout button. And if I click that, it's going to generate content for me to just begin playing with. So I can come in here and I can begin messing around with this thing. And so let's just do a little something. Let's go ahead and say maybe we want to do some thing like this. Right? So as quickly and easily as that, I literally just changed the primary layout for every single node article in the system. They're all now going to have this 2 column on top of this 1 column. But I think that's kind of ugly, so let's keep going. Maybe we'll do the reverse here. And I can take my links. And actually, let's put those here, and I'll put my comments here. Come on. There we go. And then tags, I'm going to go ahead and put underneath my image up here. Awesome. And so I'm going to remove this. There we go. So let's just save that. Now, actually, if I go home and I visit one of my nodes now, you'll see that that layout just happened, right? Like I now have like this 2/3, 1/3, 1/3, 2/3 sort of thing going on for all of this. Clearly I should have put tags here because links didn't have anything to render for me. But all the defaults of all of my articles will have just changed. But we can do more with this. We can come in here and we can go to Teasers, and we could say that we want to use Layout Builder for Teasers as well. And so if I do this, I can now manage the layout for that. I'm actually going to like just throw everything away and start from 0 here. So I can begin adding these in here, and we'll do something like this and say, you know, let's put the image in here. So, oh, that's really small. Let's do something bigger. So you'll notice here that this is, I'm configuring a block, but the form that's displaying in it is your field formatter, right? Same field formatter that you had in the old user interface, it's just now it's part of the block configuration. So what this means, you know, for those of you who are code-minded and have ever dealt with field formatters, is if you don't like the way the block is rendering something, you can just go write your own field formatter for the field that it's placing, and you'll have the options to actually use it as part of the block. You don't have to do any additional integration. Just by writing a field formatter the same way you always would, it'll just work. Let's go medium. Awesome. Maybe I'll do body and hidden, and we'll do like summary or trimmed, and that's good. Cool. So, save this, and if I go back to the front page now, you'll see I have got my layout beginning to work. And so there are some issues from a CSS perspective here because I didn't dot all my I's and cross all my T's, but you can begin to see how quickly I can come in and start changing this fundamentally on the site for how it actually works. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions about what I've shown thus far?
Is it possible to featureize this?
Is it possible to featureize it? The bit that I have just shown, yes, because those are part of third-party settings of the entity view display entities. So they would go with it. Things I'm going to show here soon, the answer to that question will be no, but what you've seen thus far, yes.
And that means it effectively can go into configuration. So
yes.
Configuration export will drop these settings that you just changed.
Yeah, so if we were to come into config synchronization for a second and just actually look at this, if we go into export, let's hope that I can actually find it because I don't mess with this that often, but it should be like entity view display for article default, right? And inside of that, you're going to have third-party settings for Layout Builder, which I bet no one can read from that distance, but when it's there, I promise. And so everything that's down in here is actually the description of our layout. Like, so right here it says that the layout ID is layout 3366. Okay? Yeah?
Is it applying some CSS? I mean, it's doing something to make things 1/3 and 2/3. So how does
I'm going to come back to that. That's a great question. I'll come back to it. The short answer is that there are layout plugins, and the layout plugins have associated libraries, so they could even have JavaScript with them, but ours, what we're doing right now, only has CSS. So yes, when you pick a layout to place, it has associated twig templates, it has associated libraries, the whole nine. All right, I'm going to keep moving. So, I don't need that tab. So we've looked at these. These are pretty cool. Let's come back into Manage Display. And if I go back to default, you'll notice that since default here actually is the view mode that renders for the canonical version of this entity type, I have an extra check mark down here. If you can't read that, it says allow each content item to have its layout customized. So if I check mark that and hit save, then when I come into here to Orion again and we take a look at it, you'll notice I have a layout button. And if I click that layout button, Well, now I can customize the layout just for this node. Okay? So, you know, maybe we'll do something simple. We don't want the whole comments section at all. Like, let's just remove that for the moment and hit save. And so now you can see I don't have the comments section on here. I got rid of it. If we go to node 3, which is the other node that I have not yet visited, you'll see I still have the comment section here because this one, it's using the default. We didn't overwrite it. Default has comments, so it has comments. But node 4, we got rid of the comments on it, right? Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. So I'm gonna put this on pause for a moment, and I'm going to take a step to the side. And that side step is this. Like, who in here's used Layout Builder? Anyone? Yeah, a little bit. Who in here's used Panelizer? That was mostly the same people. Okay. Who in here's using paragraphs? That's like the whole room. Cool. So, full disclosure, I would not use paragraphs for page layout. And here's one of the reasons why. Like I understand historically that people have done it, and there are good reasons that people have done it historically. So, but Layout Builder, it can customize the layout of any fieldable entity. Okay? So what that means is that over here in block layout, under my custom block library, I have a couple block types. And so the first block type that we're going to look at is one called text and image. And if I come in here, I already went to the effort of getting this one squared away the way that I want. So you'll see I have two view modes. I have a default and I have a reverse. And if we manage the layout on the default, I have a placeholder for image and my placeholder for text here. And if we come back and we look at reverse and manage layout on that, I have text and I have image. Okay, maybe some people can see where I'm going here. So let's go have a little bit of fun. We'll go do this on the Milky Way. So let's manage layout on this one for a moment, and I'll throw this away just like I did on the other one. And now let's add a new section. And this section's going to be a one column, and we'll do this. Cool. Let's add a block. So you'll notice I have this section in here called Inline Blocks. Okay? Inline blocks are the exact same custom block types we just looked at. Okay? But when I create these, has anybody ever been on a site where you created, I don't know, maybe like 1,000 or so of these? Anyone? Yeah? Okay. I have a customer who went off and created 2,000 plus of these, and it has a really significant performance implication until 8.6, where we rewrote the implementation specifically for Layout Builder so that now you can do one-offs of these block types for this situation. So if I come in here and say I want to add a text and image, it'll just let me begin like filling this out. So let's see. I have that. I'll put that in here. And let's do that. Although I'm actually not going to display the title. And we'll choose a file, and we'll do like let's add that block. And so just like that, I added a block to the page that is specific to only this page. You won't ever find this anywhere else in the block system. It's not going to be part of some library that you have to contend with. It won't bloat the totality of what other people have to deal with when they deal with blocks. It exists on this page and this page alone. And I can do it again too. I could come in here and I could say like, hey, let's, oh, went past it. Let's do another one.
Is this block accessible programmatically elsewhere, though?
It's a block in every sense of the word that you understand
block
it.
ID, I can...
Yeah, it won't show up inside of the normal like block plugin cache.
Right.
at all. So there's a little bit of magic in order to like get it up and running, but like if you were to do a query, you could find it. It will exist with all the other blocks of this same type.
Can you also place blocks that you can use in multiple places?
Yes. You can't do it through this UI. You have to go create it elsewhere. We'll do that in a minute, and I'll show you how that's done. I won't actually end up doing it exactly like you're asking, but I'll show you. So let's go ahead and upload a file here, and one of these is Sagittarius. Yeah, there we go. That's cool. And so for this one, like I mentioned, I had 2 different view modes, so we'll make this view mode the reverse. And so you can see like as quickly and easily as that. I mean, this is very similar to using something like paragraphs, except now, and here's the big thing about paragraphs. Has anybody ever dealt with like how paragraph revisioning happens under the hood? Paragraphs on a really big site, anyone. Okay, I have customers with 50 gig tables of nothing but integer data that Paragraphs has generated for them because they used Paragraphs for page layout. And they don't need 99+% of that data. It's meaningless. You hit edit, save, you got new revisions of every paragraph attached to that entity. There's a really great talk by Jacob Perry from GovCon of this year called Entity References Gone Wild. Go watch it. So, this has been pretty quick and effective. Let's just hit save on that and see where we're at. I mean, that's pretty cool as far as like kind of page layout sort of stuff goes. But I can do more. So I've been scrolling really fast. So these layouts over here, from 1 column through to this 3 column here, these are all provided by Core, and I'm not going to use them today at all. In fact, I'm going to completely ignore them. I'm using my own set of layouts down here from hero image all the way to my 4 column 25s. And this is part of a module called Layouts module. Everything I'm going to demo that's part of Layouts module is available on Drupal.org today. You can go grab it, Layouts plural, okay? So every configuration that I'm about to show, every layout that I'm going to show, they're all available right there. You can go play with them, okay? So let's go ahead and configure this one. Now, I have this extra classes up in the top. We talked about layout plugins earlier, and they are a plugin in the same way that blocks are plugins. They just have a slightly different implementation, and they are configurable plugins. Now, in fact, actually, before I do anything here, let's go ahead and add one of Core's. You'll see if I click like 1 column here, it just happens, right? Because none of Core's are configurable, but mine are all configurable. So if I come down here and I click like my 1 column, you'll see I have a configuration option available. So it doesn't even get placed until I go through the configuration step. And this is really, really nice because who in here has ever used paragraphs in order to ask whether or not this is going to be like red or green or, you know, right? Like this is what people do. And then you use some sort of pre-process hook in order to bubble that data up into your template, and then you abuse the hell out of your content schemas in order to get there. Let's not. So instead, since we can make layouts configurable, that's what I did. So I can come in here and just say this is like a blue section, and I'm done, right? I haven't even saved this, and I can already see what it's going to look like. Right? That's nice. Yeah. We'll go ahead and save that. Save that. Yeah. Hey, look at that. Like I have kind of this full width banded sort of thing going on. And I've done next to nothing. It's been 20 minutes since I started, and what I've done most right now is talk. Right? I'll show you my theme. I'll show you everything underlying this. It's super simple. So, let's go have some real fun. Some of you who may have looked very quickly might have noticed that under block types I have one called layout. We'll look at it real quick. If I manage display on that, you'll notice that I'm allowing each block of this type to have its layout customized. If we go back to manage fields, It doesn't have any. All it's got is the layout field. That's it. So let's go do this. We'll add a new custom block of type layout. And I'm going to call this header with an E. Full disclosure, your question about reusable blocks, I'm answering it right now. So in order to make a block reusable, you have to go through the normal, a content block, you have to go through the normal content creation process for it. So the one that we used in Layout Builder earlier kind of sidesteps this, and what it does is it puts a little Boolean marker on these entities that says, hey, this isn't reusable, right? And by virtue of that fact, it gets excluded from a bunch of the sort of caching things that happen. And because it gets excluded from the caching things that happen, when you go and edit it, it doesn't rebuild the entire block cache for the whole site, which, let me tell you, is good.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. So we're going to hit save on this, and it's just going to drop me right back here because there was nothing there. So this is a little like WTF-y, but if I hit edit again, I can now hit layout on it, and I can do whatever I want to a block. So I could toss anything I want into here. First thing I'm going to do is throw away its default stuff because it's meaningless to me. And let's go have some fun. Maybe we'll do a... Where is that? I have this thing called navigation, okay? Navigation is a custom layout plugin, okay? I totally just hard-coded this thing. You can dissect it and play with it. You don't have to use it, but it's probably good from like a inspiration sort of standpoint, looking at it and seeing what's happening here. And so I can come in and I can say, oh, logo media, that's my logo. Image style, we're going to use the thumbnail, and my menu is going to be, what is it, main? Yeah, main navigation. And so if I hit add on that, you'll see as quickly and easily as that, I now have what amounts to kind of the beginnings of a real legitimate header. And clearly some of my styling got messed up since I updated a bunch of styles because these should be left to right, but whatever. You get the idea. I'm going to add another section to this. We'll use a hero image this time. And on this one, let's do my blue with a background image style. My height will be, I don't know, 300. We'll hit add. Okay, cool. And I don't like parallax. Let's uncheck mark that. And you know what? I'd really like it to be full width. Cool.
You haven't hit save yet.
I haven't even hit save yet. Yeah. Right? I'm seeing what I'm going to get right here. So let's hit save on that. And then, so normally this block that we just created, it would totally be available in that sidebar I was using earlier. And I'll show it. I'm not going to place it there, but it would be available. What I am going to do is I'm going to go into the normal block system. And I'm going to add my header to my header. That's a novel idea. We won't display the title. All right, cool. So, I don't know. Let's go to oops. I'm not doing well here. Node 3. Awesome. So now I have a header on this thing, right? That was pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. Let's go do one more thing to it. So because I've shared some configuration options across this whole thing, I can make this a header section and hit update and hit save. And now if we come back over here, my header is going to be a sticky header and it sticks with me, right? This is all CSS under the hood. I'm just dynamically applying styles to this crap. There's no real magic, right? And I mean, we're at the 25-minute mark. And I've pretty much built the skeleton of a good site. It didn't take me a lot of time. I had some good building blocks to work with. So you could totally imagine just having a group of layouts that you like to use sitting in your back pocket and taking them from project to project to project. Don't really have to add a lot of customization to it. So let me show you my first little customization that I did, right? If we come into layout here again, because any layout do, and I hit configure section, you'll see my extra classes as a drop down, right? Well, this normally isn't. My class is actually doing this through a form alter. Normally, it's just a text area so that I can type in whatever class I want. Like that's what the module's going to do. If you go grab the layouts module, you install it, and you play with this, you don't have a drop-down. You'll just have a text area. Type in whatever class you want. I did a quick form alter, and boom, I've got that. No big deal, right? So I'm going to go into code, but before I do that, I want to open it up for questions for a minute, because I know I just did a ton of crap.
How does the data get stored under the hood, and in particular, how would you migrate into this? Like if you created in the node one specific block, how would you use the migrate API to get that custom block that you created? Or I don't know if that's the right term.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. So you mean like from D7 or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to dance around this question just a little bit, but let me answer the first question, which was how's it stored? We have a layout field. The layout field schema is essentially like, what layout is this? Simple string. What's the layout's configuration, which is a blob of data, and then kind of a custom settings thing on top of that. I don't remember precisely, but we do that per delta. So every time you've seen me add a new layout to something, I'm adding a new delta to the field that keeps track of that. Now there are a couple of implications for everything I just said. The first thing that's worth noting is that since it's a field, it's translatable. We don't have that exposed through the user interface yet. We do have a patch that exposes it, and it works pretty well, actually. And we have every intention of seeing that land for 8.7. But we have test coverage to prove that multilingual actually happens here. So, for example, if I had all the multilingual patches applied, you could actually come in here, translate this node to another language, and you could rearrange the data, you could throw the data away and start over, you could do whatever you wanted there, okay?
So parallel to what he's saying too, I think you're also saying maybe exposing that to be consumed by some other system or migrating it away from maybe Drupal at some point in the future. You'd render it. You would basically render these objects into an array, and then that array is what you would migrate into whatever system that you had. And then he was also saying that programmatically you still have access to each one of these objects, so if you wanted to access this particular block or this particular field inside of this layout, you would still have access to it.
Yeah, so the structure underneath it, you can actually ask each individual field delta. You can be like, hey, what are all the block components that make you up? And it'll tell you what they all are and what their current configuration is, right? So, so migrating into it, we intend on writing a migrate path for Panelizer, but it's probably a D8 to D8 migrate path, not a D7 to D8 migrate path. And there are a few features of things like Panelizer that we don't necessarily support yet. That being said, I'm a maintainer of panels, Panelizer, Page Manager. There are only a handful of page layout tools that I don't help with in the contrib world. And in my opinion, Layout Builder in Core is far and away the most capable of everything. And also likely the most stable. The other thing is that since it's a field, that means it's also revisionable. Again, we don't have it exposed through the user interface, but we have every intention of having you be able to do forward revisions where you get to change stuff. So that even means these inline blocks that we were playing with, you could create forward revisions of them that don't change what's currently published. So if I wanted to change, for instance, what the Sagittarius image was or something like that, I could absolutely go through the process of making that happen in a forward revision. Again, we have test coverage and these sorts of things to prove that we have the capability, but building the user interface to make it all work is a bit of a thing that we're still working through. And while I'm on the topic, we're also working through accessibility. It's not there yet, but we have patches in order to get us where we want to go. So there's even a patch available today that allows you to interact with block placement via the keyboard. Okay. There was another hand over here. Yeah?
I have two questions. Just wanted to confirm earlier, when you placed blocks on there, you weren't overriding config in any way?
Like the custom blocks in here? No, there's no config that exists at that layer. It is field values of the entity upon which we are placing it.
Okay. My second question is, I'm really familiar with the D7 panels world page
Yep.
manager, the whole stack. I love it. And I kind of think I'm seeing some things, and I just want to make sure
Yep.
I'm kind of right.
Shoot.
What you showed with the
Yes.
What you've got here is panel.
In core. It's mini panels in core.
Right. And then you've got Panelizer.
In core.
Custom content teams.
In core.
We're doing with the, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the only thing we don't have out of that stack, there are essentially two to three things depending upon how you want to count. We have context, so the underlying context system that exists there is actually part of core and runs through everything that we're seeing here. So when I've got this image here, right, even the ability to place that image and know that that field is available for placement here, like if I made another content type layoutable, I won't see the fields that are on article, I'll only see the fields that are on that type. So we have context like filtering at that layer, which is awesome. The other thing that's worth noting here though is that we don't have custom contexts. Like you can't say, please make node 5 available when I'm on node 4. That's not a thing that you can do in core right now. Neither do we have relationships. So you can't say, I would like to custom render the author in some way of this node. That's not a thing that we're doing yet either. It's on the long-term roadmap. It is not there. Okay. The only other thing out of the big stack of like tools that we had in 7, that like high-level stuff that you really don't have then would be like panels everywhere. We're not even going to try, and there are a lot of really good technical reasons why. So, and I'd be happy to dig into those later. Any other questions before I move into code?
Question. Search. So is that
No. Yeah, ask your question, sorry.
So basically that inline block that you place and all the content that is there, will that be indexed as part of the content of node/node 4?
Depends upon what search utility you use. So
Let's
if you
go with what's out of the box.
yes,
Search API.
no,
No?
out of the box. Core, yes. A lot of people don't know this. Core renders the page and indexes it. Search API doesn't. It renders on a field-by-field basis. I've been told there are ways to get it to take the render of the page and do it. So if that is a feature of Search API, then yes.
You basically render the page array, and then you use that to index appropriately.
Yep. If you can do that at the Search API layer, then the answer would be yes there as well. What you can't do though, so let me like wax eloquent for a second. You could totally go build a content type now that has no fields. Node bundle, no fields, say, I want to lay out every single one of these. You could have a group of custom blocks that are all one field. So this one's image, that one's text, this one's links, this one's taxonomy terms. And you could willy-nilly put all of that stuff together on a page however you please. But that node would not be associated with those taxonomy terms. Right? That didn't happen because that's a top-level like field alignment as part of the node itself, and since you didn't add the field there, it wouldn't be, right? So there are implications here, and so specifically when you get into something like faceting, you would have to get involved and like add an extra layer of decision making to that process in order to get that to work.
But in that case, the things that are important like that, taxonomies and things, those should be a field on that content type.
Exactly.
For your indexes and anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make sense?
If I will change a header afterwards, my custom block, how cache will be invalidated on all pages?
Yeah, so, I mean, you've noticed even as I was changing styles as we were doing it, it was invalidating cache for me. And so what's happening underneath the hood is that, the block system, like just regular blocks, stepping away from layout builder completely, just like the normal block layout, already asks every single one of those blocks what their cache tags and cache contexts and things like that are. So anytime I edit that block, it's going to tell Drupal to rebuild anything that has that block on it. And since everything has that block on it, so there's like a cache hit worth talking about, right? If you go edit a top-level block that appears on every page, you're going to invalidate the cache of the entire site. Right, that is how it has to work.
Since layout is a field on entity,
Mm-hmm.
I will place some custom block on this layout.
Mm-hmm.
How will Drupal know that cache should be invalidated?
Cache tags.
Yeah, cache tags. Yeah.
So anything that can hook into the cache tag system, that so by default, if using cache tags the way you say it is, then it's doing it the right way. And then 2, if you have other cache layers outside of just Drupal, Varnish, CDNs, things of the like, as long as you have a system that's hooking in and listening to those cache tags.
Yeah, each layout builder is kind of taking care of these cache tags for blocks place time.
Yes.
If
Yes, Layout Builder consults every block that's placed in it and asks those what their cache tags are and bubbles that stuff up. So if there's a block in there that has its own layout on it, it will do the same thing, and it's turtles all the way down.
So that segues perfectly into the problem, right? If somebody goes in and updates the header block because they have permissions to, and it's a block that is used on every single page, and you have 40,000 pages and there's a lot of traffic, you just invalidated all your caching and you had a pretty heavy back in it. So my question is, is there at the permission level now the ability to set roles based on the ability to like add
No.
Per node configuration?
No.
Based on a role, like this
No.
role can do per node configuration, but this role can't.
No. So there should be.
Right.
And I'm sure there will be before 8.7, but we have one permission to control everything I've showed today. So I mean, I should have maybe divulged that up front. It is part of the presentation, but there is one permission today that does all of that. So you probably don't want to give it to like content authors just yet. Like we're not quite there, but that's mostly because we haven't nuanced the permissions,
Okay.
right? So what we're staring at now is actual layout definitions. So this is how we tell Drupal that there are more layouts, right? And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time just looking at the simplest of these, which is my one column, okay? And so it'll say a few things. It'll say like, here's where you're going to find stuff for this. Once you're in that, I have a template named layout -100, which, you know, clearly if we open this, I have a layout -100.html.twig. That's totally what we're doing here. I have a library defined. This is, I mean, I could open my libraries YAML, but odds are you all have probably dealt with libraries before, so I'm not going to. And this is just super normal Drupal stuff. This is just a little extra layer on top of all of the normal Drupal theme, Drupal libraries, all of that sort of stuff that you're used to doing. So this is the definition for my one column layout, okay? And over here, I have a little bit of CSS. You can see I really broke a sweat on that. And I have a little bit of twig. That's the whole thing, right? And so what's really cool about this, though, is, all right, I lied. It's not the whole thing. Because if we come back here, you'll notice I have a class, and the class says that it uses the default config layout, but that's part of my module that's installed here. So since you saw everything else, because it was pretty simple, and I'm happy to go back to that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the source, and we'll actually look at this for a second. So you don't have to specify class. If you don't, it'll go through the layout system's normal class for this stuff, which isn't configurable and doesn't expect you to do anything crazy. But I like crazy. Crazy's what I do. So we customize the build method here, and we pull out of configuration whatever classes we had, and we add that to the attributes so that it gets rendered, so that this attributes and the attributes that are in my twig, you know, the normal top-level attributes, I'm adding classes to that through the UI. Okay, that's pretty cool. And, you know, in order to get this, I had a class form element. There's my full width checkbox. So any one of the layouts I've shown today, I could choose to go full width on. I've only done it for the hero. We saw me like take it from being narrow to being full width, but I can do that with any of them, right? I've got, well, I don't actually have to validate anything. There's nothing going on here. And then submit is super simple. Like, that was the effort it took me in order to start getting these configurable layouts. So from a development perspective, like it's a fairly low bar to enter. And you know, on top of that, I wrote all of this code and put it out there so that other people didn't have to do it from scratch. You can steal what I built and run like mad. In fact, please do.
Can I summarize that for the non?
Yes, please do.
You now have the ability to customize Layout Builder the way you want.
Yep.
Right. So in your case, you created a drop-down list instead of a text field fill-in, and I see the potential here for like agencies or companies that have a very specific kind of layout or content building process. They can start to build and customize the Layout Builder the way they want it.
That's exactly right.
Their libraries with layouts and their classes available to you, and so I see where you're going with getting rid of paragraphs.
Yep. So I don't need paragraphs. And moreover, because I have a custom user interface that knows what blocks I interacted with and what blocks I didn't, I only ever revision the stuff I touch. That's it. There's no need to revision every single content block that was part of this page. I only revision the ones that I actually bothered messing with, which means I don't have the database bloat, right? Also, the information for that all exists in one field anyway. So even if I were to go nuts, it would happen in one place, but we didn't. We took the time and effort in order to like really reduce what would happen there. Because fundamentally, and every single person in this room knows it, but maybe doesn't know that they know it, paragraphs isn't a page layout tool, right? We're abusing content models and then exposing them via preprocess hooks in order to make it available in templates that we had to invent in the first place, right? Like, anybody could take the modules that I wrote here today and go apply it to any content entity. By the way, including paragraphs. It works there as well. So I'm going to spend the last few minutes, I'm going to look at my theme real quick. We have 4 minutes. So this is my theme down here. You'll see I have a master CSS that's like 50 some odd lines. There's not much here. I have overridden the page HTML.twig. And the reason I did that was because I just wanted one column of regions that I could do a little something with. I didn't want multiple columns. I just wanted one column. I think it's one column. It's like 3 or 4 regions in here. And this gives me the flexibility to do everything you saw today, right? It makes it possible for me to say whether something's going to be full width or not, right? Because you can't really do that if you've got a sidebar. It becomes really, really difficult to communicate. Oh, hey, I want this full width. Well, no, the page doesn't care. It doesn't like that. So my template, or my theme is very, very simple. I have a couple of preprocess hooks in here. This is the only one that's really, really relevant because what this does is it turns my class into a select list. Okay? So we have like 3 minutes, and I'm going to go do something stupid. Everybody likes that, I hope. We're going to turn on a module called Layout Builder Restrictions. And having never turned this module on before, full disclosure, I may flail a little, but I think if I just go into Content Types, Manage Display, I'm going to have additional options. So now I can choose whether or not blocks within certain subsystems are even allowed. So for example, I could be like, oh, I don't want anyone to be able to place menus, or I don't want them to be able to place system blocks, right? Or I can come in here and I can say, I only want to allow specific layouts to be available. So let's do that. Let's say like my hero image can be placed. We won't place navigation in here, but we'll place the rest. Cool. And now, hopefully, if we come to layout on this, and we hit add section, yeah, we only have the layouts that we just chose. So with this module, I just limited the scope of the user interface. So I could now come in here and I could say like, I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. Don't give this to your content authors just yet. We need to introduce some permissions. But once it's there, you can customize the user interface that they're going to be able to use so that they can't go shoot themselves in the foot with blocks or layouts you don't want them using, right? And so this was actually a new API we added to core called plugin filtering, and it went in, I think, for 8.5. Yeah, either 8.5 or 8.6. And it makes this possible. So it doesn't get rid of those. Like, I'll have to control what things are available on a bundle by bundle basis, but I can now do that. And so this is really, really powerful. It means you can begin building the experience you want your editors to actually have. So that's, I think, officially the end of my time here, but I'm happy to take additional questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording though.